received at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning. That's the kind of effort we expect. They also put in a ton of analytical rigor. They made the phone calls to potential customers. They made the phone calls to industry experts. They ran surveys. They did a ton of research to support all the work that they were doing on what was an incredibly difficult, what turns out to be not only a technology commercialization project, but also a very hard management consulting project too. So I'm very proud of their efforts, and I'm really proud of the support they received from our alumni like Taylor Potter, who gave up a lot of her free time to help imbue some of the culture and as well as bring some of the insights to the team. Terrific support from our team mentors and inventors that you'll get to meet a little bit later. Mentors and Dr. Paiva, as well as a broad set of folks across Tulsa to help make the logistics of this program work. It's just been terrific support. I'm so proud of them and the people surrounding them. I think the second thing to remember is, or to think about, is just how quickly we've become the catalysts for entrepreneurship and technology commercialization that we wanted to be, and the kind of catalyst that we are in Norman. It is just amazing how many students came forward saying, hey, I've got this idea, or I actually have a side business, I need some help. It's just been a constant flow. Even today, as we were preparing for this presentation, a student came in to talk to us about their idea, what they were working on, and how they can engage us to help accelerate that. We've had a ton of professors come forward as well. Dr. Abashi in particular comes to mind, who wouldn't let me leave her office, or she would break my knees unless I completely agreed to help her with her project. Dr. Verma and his business plan team got to help just a little bit in their award-winning efforts to win a business plan competition. So even the professors here on campus have come forward to help. The community has been terrific. We accelerated, because of all this effort and all this response, we accelerated our plans to launch a pitch competition here on this campus. And given just the excitement in the community, we opened it up for the first time, our pitch competition, to a community side, which was a tremendous activity for us. Really brought in a bunch of folks in the community. You're going to get to meet a few of them here later on this evening as well. So it's just amazing how quickly we've been able to be this catalyst that we really hoped we would become. Third thing I'd leave you with is CCW, just in general, is thriving. We have grown tremendously. We've gone from about 15 interns on our payroll about a year and a half ago to almost 45 here this semester. 45 interns now working with the same level of effort and rigor that the team that you're going to meet today. That's a ton of impact that this program is having. We've been engaging with major companies and corporations. This semester we had a team working with Apple and executives from Apple to launch a business using only an iPad. That's all they could touch, is the flat screen, and make their business, come up with their idea, get it started, and get it launched, and in the process provide a ton of feedback to Apple about what the strengths and weaknesses of iPads are in this area of small business. So this is incredible. One of the world's most dynamic, largest companies coming to us for thought leadership on their product, which is exactly what the kinds of things we want to get involved with in CCEW. So those just a small sample. We've got obviously this new program here. We're launching a new program in Livermore, California this summer. We're embedding a team of alumni there to work on some technologies out of the Livermore laboratories. We're working with OSSM to launch a high school program this summer as well. Very excited about that. We have lots of software products still being developed. We've had 6 disclosures of new technologies, programs written by students in the past year, and that's continuing to grow. So a ton of things going on. The program itself is thriving, having far more impact than we probably ever imagined. The program started 5 years ago with something just like this, though. It was one team giving one presentation. We have some remarks here from some others, as well as the results of our pitch competition, which our participants are eagerly awaiting their awards. So let me get to it. Let me introduce Daniel Pullen, the Vice President for Strategic Planning and Economic Development. He is the founder of CCEW, the father that made it all happen. Please welcome Daniel Pullen.
Thank you, Jeff. It is so exciting to be here tonight. Not only for what it is and what you're going to see, and I think you'll all be impressed by it, but what it's going to become. Why we're here tonight is really a byproduct of about half a decade ago, President David Warren really shared the vision with a handful of us that the University of Oklahoma has the opportunity and really probably the obligation to be a catalytic force in growing and diversifying Oklahoma's economy, right? So moving the university beyond, well, here's our economic impact, we got this many employees, they throw off this type of tax revenue, here's our foot that can connect ideas to people in new and interesting ways that can become the next headquarters that are launched in Oklahoma, or that can create the type of environment where people who are already conducting business outside of the state's borders can relocate to Oklahoma. Traditional economic development activities as facilitated by institutes of higher education. And CCEW is one vehicle through which that economic development occurs. It has two sister organizations. One is called the Corporate Engagement Office, which specifically provides a concierge service to the private sector, such that we can work with a company and understand what their strategic goals are. They want to grow this way using this type of technology. And we can array those interests against the capabilities of the University of Oklahoma. Here's our researcher that's doing this. These are the types of students that ought to be the next generation of your workforce. How about locating in one of our research facilities to grow your new company? Those types of activities. And we can play matchmaker and help the private sector navigate all of the opportunities within the University of Oklahoma truly at the speed of business. Not in the way a lot of other universities work, where it's very siloed, and you know who's on first and which way's up, and this dean and that administrator and this. No, we bring it all together and we solve those issues for them behind the scenes, such that we can create a mutual return on investment between the company and the University of Oklahoma. The second sister organization is the Office of Technology Development. Tonight we have Elaine Ham, who's the director and really oversees our Tulsa technologies. And the Office of Technology Development simply works with our researchers and increasingly our students who are generating new intellectual property through the course of their scholarly and creative activities. We patent this technology and we move it to the marketplace. We've spun out over 40 companies, raised over $100 million of capital to support those companies, and are actually turning a profit for the taxpayers of Oklahoma, something that less than 1 in 10 universities across the nation are able to do. It makes good business sense to do what we're doing, in addition to complementing the academic process. And then, of course, CCW, and you'll see, I think, the program in full force. But what we've seen is that the Tulsa community is an important area for us to continue to expand. And I know that we're going to grow CCW. The fact that we've had such incredible outreach, not only from OU leadership, President Clancy and others here, but the community, the Metro Chamber, the other universities in Tulsa have been very, very complimentary to our efforts. And so in a short amount of time, we feel like this is the type of environment where the university should continue to invest more and more resources. And so you'll see more people like Elaine running around here with greater frequency. You'll see a bigger, larger CCW moving forward. You'll continue to see the University of Oklahoma be the University of Oklahoma, not just the University of Norman. And while we don't yet have a physical presence in Oklahoma City at our health sciences campus there, we're very happy to have a foothold here in Tulsa and are looking forward to growing it moving forward. So thank you so much for giving of your time and many of you in this room of your talents to nurture these young people as they are doing all they can to grow and diversify Oklahoma's economy based on true Oklahoma innovation. It's a wonderful story. It's the best of what makes a university a unique catalytic agent for Oklahoma's economy, and I really hope that you enjoy the rest of your evening. This time I want to introduce, though I need not to, the president of OU Tulsa, Jerry Clancy, who, even though I drink tons of Monster drinks and I'm always on coffee and I'm trying to run through brick walls, I can still not match his energy and enthusiasm. And you just can't do it through modern medicine. It's innate, it's natural. So maybe we should talk. But thank you so much for your leadership and being such an incredible cheerleader and really guiding force for moving CCW into the Tulsa community. Jerry Clancy, everyone.
Well, my short comments are really an ode to CCEW and why I absolutely love CCEW. First of all, one of my most enjoyable evenings of the entire semester is when I got to do a fireside chat with our students here. And they asked me great questions, and it was one of those scenarios where I just spilled my guts about all sorts of things, and I actually felt better.
He's a psychiatrist.
I'm a psychiatrist. I don't get to do it that way. Usually it's all at me. It's the other way around. And I hope I didn't depress you or anything, but I felt a lot better. Last year, I had the honor of being the chairman of the board of the Tulsa Metro Chamber of Commerce. And it was an incredibly busy year, but I learned a ton. It was like going back to school again. Because my degrees are in biochemistry and then medicine and then psychiatry. There's not a whisper of business in there at all. If you thought you heard something that was related to business, you did not. I was not trained in any way in business. But to go into an organization that has 70 CEOs on the board and learn how this community as an economic engine works was an absolutely fascinating experience. And I felt like I got another degree in understanding civic leadership. Well, about a month ago, one of our competing cities to Tulsa had a big town hall meeting on economic development. And I'm not going to mention what town it was, but the leader got up and said, I'm declaring a war on jobs. And Tulsa is in our sights. And we're going after Tulsa's aviation jobs. Well, we figured out where he was coming from. What he had done is read the book, The Coming Jobs War. The Coming Jobs War is written by Jim Clifton, who is the chairman of Gallup Corporation. And Gallup Corporation can ask any question of the entire world now and get an accurate answer back. And so they asked the question of the world, and it took about 3 years to get their answer back. What's the most important thing to you? City by city, country by country, the answer came in jobs. If you have jobs, everything else works better. And he then went on to say in his book that the United States is very much on the brink of a jobs war. Who is going to determine what are the high quality, innovative, most impactful jobs for the next decade or two or three? And we have an opportunity in America to be that leader that we are right now, or we have an opportunity to take second, third, fourth, fifth place if we don't do something about it. Then listen to what he strongly encouraged. He strongly encouraged 4 things, and it's very important and very pertinent to what our universities do and what CCEW does. The first thing he said we must fix is American education. Common education, high school graduation rates in the United States are abysmal, and we're not even those that graduate are not graduating qualified to take on college jobs that will be helpful in the coming jobs war. The second thing he said we need to fix is American healthcare. American healthcare is dragging down the United States. We spend twice as much as any other country on healthcare, and our health outcomes of our country are in the bottom third of developed countries. The third thing he said that we need to focus on is do your work at a city or regional level. Don't try to have a national policy on economic development. You don't have the connections. You don't have the depth of understanding what this community can do versus what this community can do. You've got to work at it at the city level. And that's what's so cool about CCEW coming to Tulsa, is because they're learning about Tulsa. They've got the well-established program in Norman, but now they're learning about Tulsa, and it'll be a little bit different. It'll be a little bit different. What is the best fit for CCEW? David Greer is here from the University of Tulsa. We've already had initial conversations that in the coming years, we would like to work with the University of Tulsa on CCEW growth in Tulsa. It's a great fit. It is a great fit. But the last thing he said that we need to focus on in America is take innovation and turn it into entrepreneurship. And that's one of the things that CCEW does very well as well. Taking a great idea, but what are you going to do with that idea? We professors are really good at coming up with ideas. We're not very good at doing something with it. We'll write a paper and we think we're done. That's not it. Write a paper and say, promote me. That's not it. There's more that you need to be doing. So as you think about some of the presentations tonight, in particular our CCEW team, think about those things of better education, better health care, working at a city regional level, and innovation moving into entrepreneurship. And that's what our team is going to do, is show some great examples of that. So now I get to introduce David Kendrick. David Kendrick is a Duncan, Oklahoma native, a true Flatlander. He went to University of Oklahoma in engineering. then to medical school at the University of Oklahoma, where he turned the world upside down. Then he went to Tulane and Charity Hospital, where he did his residency in medicine and pediatrics. Charity Hospital, a very famous hospital across this country as far as indigent care, but also was the hospital that was wiped out by Katrina. Then off to Harvard for fellowship in public health training in medical informatics, and then got to work with David Eddy, who is one of the national leaders in medical informatics and predictive medicine, using data sets to be able to understand what's going to happen in the future as far as your health, as far as the community health. Then we coaxed him back here. We coaxed him back, and he's done absolutely fantastic work. One of the things that's most impressive about David's work is it's very selfless. David writes grants that help the entire community. He wrote a $12 million grant that we received from the federal government on health information exchange and handed it to the Community Service Council and said, you be the principal investigator. And so they received the money on the grant that David wrote. But it's a regional grant that has turned into a platform for the federal government to give us 6 more very high-profile, prestigious grants from the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Innovation. So back to those central themes of how to work at a city level, and David's done great work. So we're going to let David now introduce the project for this year. Right? All right. Welcome, David Kennedy.
Well, I'm not quite sure how to follow that up.
You better be good.
You said something. First of all, I just want to tell you that this is a rare moment in society in general, I think, especially what's going on in Tulsa, because we've begun to gather around people who generally spend their days trying to figure out how to undercut one another or be in business and competition with another party, are sitting around the table together trying to solve our common problems, which is truly unique when you can do that in a market-driven society, which we all know is important and we want to be, but at the same time, we've made some space for the common good. And I think that's a critical moment, a critical juncture that we've arrived at in Tulsa, and I think that gives us some opportunities that you're going to hear more about in a moment from this fantastic team. I also want to confess, and this may sound like we're in an AA meeting, but I was an entrepreneur as a student, and I didn't have a CCEW. And I can point to very specific, tangible opportunities that I missed along the way, and things that I didn't take advantage of, and money I spent on lawyers that I wouldn't have had to do had there been a CCEW in place. And so I say to the CCEW team, thank you for coming to Tulsa, because it really is a core set of skills that you're bringing to this group. And, you know, things as simple as how do you make a PowerPoint presentation and present it effectively, to things as complex as how do you evaluate a market and assess it. In the education training, you know, in the training that we're in the university, we really get a lot of this is the science, this is how to do good science, this is how to write good scientific papers. But when you're selling ideas, that's another concept altogether. You want to be right on the science, you want to be right on on the facts, but engendering emotion and tying emotion to the science you're bringing to the table is really what it takes to make things go, to change things in the world, whether you're working on the for-profit side and trying to build a Microsoft or another large company, or you're working on the nonprofit side and trying to change society and improve health and lives. So this program is critical, I think. I'm really thrilled to have gotten to be a part of it for this year's project, but also a couple of years ago I got to work with a team from Norman, which really got me excited about this as well. So with that, should I introduce the project at all, or should I let these guys take it from scratch?
I think they can do it.
All right. Well, I'll let them take it from scratch then. And Joe Walker, I want to acknowledge here in the front row, who has been my compatriot on building this program literally from day one. I have the note hanging on the board that he handed me as we were doing a press release. I think it was on the Patient-Centered Medical Home thing with IBM. He handed me at the end of the press conference, said, "Hey, I want to do this kind of stuff. Do you have any places for me?" And that's 3 years ago now, and we've gone to some incredible places together on this, and so we're eager to hear what the team has to present to us and to you all, and to help with the questions. So let me introduce the team. First, we have Chris Chavez, who's a PhD candidate in her 4th year of training in engineering. Sarah Gray, who's a master's in organizational dynamics, class of 2012. Heather Vaughn, who's in a doctor of physical therapy program in the second year. And then Chris Sudduth, who was working with this team in the beginning and for lots of things going on, which may come out later. He's here to be in a supportive role at this point and has contributed greatly, which the team will acknowledge as well. And he's a fourth-year medical student whom I work with and have worked with in clinic quite a bit. He's going to be a fantastic doctor in about 2 weeks. All right. Fantastic. So these guys have really worked hard. I have seen demonstrations, their preliminary work up to this point, and I'm really excited, as I hope you are, to see the full-on program. So with that, I'll turn it over to you guys.
Okay, thank you. Might be important to have the clicker on. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Kendrick. We are so excited to be here tonight to tell you about all of our hard work that we've been working on this semester. Before we get started, I'd like to tell you a little bit of the background story of why we're all here tonight. Basically, Dr. Kendrick approached CCEW with a problem his organization was facing, and that is My Health Access Network was in need of additional revenue sources. So our team identified such sources and collectively can bring in $8 million in revenue for My Health, which can allow My Health to remain sustainable and continue to grow and change Oklahoma's healthcare, as well as impacting Tulsa and more broadly Oklahoma, making it a leader in this space. So, without further ado, I'd love to introduce ourselves. We are Team OU Tulsa Health Information Exchange. I'm Sarah Gray. I'm a master's student in organizational dynamics.
My name's Heather Vaughn, and I'm a doctor of physical therapy in the College of Allied Health.
And I'm Chris Chavez. I'm a PhD candidate in the College of Engineering.
I'd also like to take this time and thank Dr. Kendrick and Joe Walker for your help. We could have not done this without you, as well as our team advisors, Dr. Paeva, Taylor, and Ben, as well as Chris. Thank you guys so much. So, again, we are OU Tulsa Health Information Exchange. I want to start us off by telling some background story about some government regulation and what exactly a health information organization actually is. So electronic healthcare data is the future of healthcare. The government has specific components in place to prosper the growth of electronic healthcare data as well as health information organizations. Specifically, Presidential Executive Order stated that all electronic healthcare data must be digitized by 2014. Also, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009 stated that all electronic healthcare records must be certified. And finally, the establishment of Meaningful Use Phase 1, which stated that all shared care transition data utilized by a doctor and hospital must be utilized when using an electronic healthcare record. So, with that, these components were set in place to ensure the growth of health information organizations. A health information organization is an organization that's primarily responsible for the electronic transfer of health-related information between the providers that it serves. So, My Health is a locally established health information organization. Because of these legal components set in place, federal grants were awarded, and My Health was one out of 17 to be awarded the Beacon Grant. They were given $12.4 million to use over the course of 3 years. This is a huge deal. They also have existing infrastructure and over 40 key stakeholders in the Tulsa area. These consist of the 3 major health systems, St. John, St. Francis, and Hillcrest, as well as Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Oklahoma, the Oklahoma Health Department, and corporations such as Quick Trip, just to name a few. So the value of My Health really lies in the interconnectivity of all of these organizations. Basically, because of all the health data are spread out in multiple locations, it can take all of this data, consolidate it into one place. That then allows them to use advanced analytics to run, to look at health trends, identify at-risk patients, and help basically deal with the lack of inefficient communication between the doctor and the patient. So with that said, My Health is really set apart from other HIOs because of its existing infrastructure, its advanced analytics, and the Beacon grant. It's just a really big deal. So like I said before, My Health is looking for additional revenue sources. So what I want to point out is the fact that the Beacon grant that was stated earlier, it expires in 2013. And just like any new and upcoming company, they want to do their homework. They want to kind of research what other areas they can look into to reach that additional revenue. And our team believes that they are in a great place to do so. I want to call your attention to this graph. And basically what we're trying to illustrate is that there's a huge drastic change between 2012 and 2013. This is because the money spent from the Beacon grant was used to build their existing infrastructure, which is already in place. But we want to illustrate the fact that there are still additional costs that will continue throughout 2013 and beyond, with a projected estimate that they will need $2.4 million to remain sustainable. So like I stated earlier, our team has identified 3 new markets for My Health. More specifically, pharmaceutical industry, employers, and patients. So within those, specifically within pharma, phase 3 clinical trials, self-insured employers, and empowered individuals. And as you can see, there's substantial potential revenue for each one of these markets. And as a team, we've collectively identified current tools that My Health already utilizes that can be used for each one of these markets. We'll go through each one of these markets more specifically, and within that, we'll break down what these tools can do. So, our team has also identified with put together these 3 markets. It gives My Health a total revenue opportunity of $8.1 million. So we're now going to take a closer look at each one of these markets, and we're going to start with pharma. So, specifically phase 3 clinical trials, the issues that they are facing here in Oklahoma have to do with subject adherence and subject recruitment. So let's take a look at the big picture here in Oklahoma. Right now there's 336 phase 3 clinical trials actively recruiting in the state of Oklahoma. We are focused on phase 3 clinical trials because at this point for a clinical trial, they recruit the most subjects. So we thought as a team, that's where My Health could provide the most value. So, assuming 100% penetration of this market, My Health has a total opportunity of $297 million. Why is this? This is because due to subject recruitment, it's very inefficient and very costly. And due to subject adherence, this is because the dropout rate per phase 3 clinical trial is very high and very costly. So to give you an idea, it costs $47,000 per patient per trial when you recruit a patient in a phase 3 clinical trial at a minimum recruitment time of 6 months. And we've identified this is largely to do with lack of identified subjects for these clinical trials. So for subject adherence, it costs $6,300 per patient every time a patient drops out. This is largely to do because 1 out of 4 patients drops out of a phase 3 clinical trial. This is huge. And this is largely due to one-way communication. So now that I've gone over the problems, I'm going to pass this on to my colleague Heather, where she's going to talk about the solutions.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so now that Sarah's talked to you a little bit about the problems for pharma, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the solutions that My Health has to offer. So to address subject recruitment, we are suggesting that the app in Tahoe that's currently existing in the My Health platform will serve to expedite the patient identification that pharma is really needing to address. So how is this going to do that? Well, right now, with the existing methods, pharma is looking at a very small segment of opportunity for qualified subjects. So what Pentaho can do is to open up that data pool using real-time de-identified data to help them really hone in on their demographic that will address the inclusion criteria for that trial. So, and for what are we going to do about subject adherence? Well, the existing technology, they have a partnership with the Microsoft Health Vault. They are not yet integrated, but this portal will create the communication that is needed two-way in order for to create less dropout and better opportunity for pharma. This technology will also allow for CROs to monitor and track the behaviors of their clinical trial subjects, which will also drop down the dropout rate. So as we looked at our competitive market, really what we found that they were missing, they are out there, but what they're missing is the functionality of MyHealth that MyHealth has to offer that I have mentioned. What they do have, however, is the full development. And so we still have a couple steps to take technology-wise for that. And specifically, I mean the patient adherence segment where we have to integrate the patient portal as with the MyHealth platform. So now that I've told you about the pharma market, let's move on to our second customer, self-employed or self-insured businesses. Okay, so the picture of Oklahoma for self-insured businesses. Well, we've got 10, we want to hone in on the businesses with on-site clinics. And MyHealth right now, this is an untapped market. They're not targeting providers in these clinics. So right now in Oklahoma, there are 10 clinics that exist. However, this is a rapidly growing market that creates substantial opportunity for MyHealth. So what are the problems facing these clinics? Well, the same problems that face every provider is redundant testing, excessive ER visits, and unnecessary specialist referrals. And the reason for this is primarily lack of patient information for the provider. It's very fragmented right now. So this is driving up costs for these businesses, and we believe that MyHealth can drive that cost down. So how are we going to do that? Well, we have existing lab apps to address the redundant testing. This will allow employers to track and monitor the lab testing that's currently happening, and that way they do not assume more lab tests because they don't know others have happened, essentially. Therefore, my point before was they're increasing their information load. So we believe we can drive down costs in that way. So how are we going to drive down ER visits? Well, we have an app, Archimedes Indigo, that allows for individualized outcomes guidelines that will help to really identify the patient's issues and drive down the problem of chronic disease that is 76% of ER admissions. And lastly, we will address the referrals, the excess referrals, and we'll do this using the doc-to-doc technology. And this will provide e-consultation capabilities that will allow doctors and specialists to talk to each other via a web-based portal and drive down the actual physical visits that are happening that will drive up costs for ultimately the employer. And again, as we talk about our competitive analysis, we really, our price point may be a little higher, but what our competitors are missing is all of this technology and integrated information that we have to offer. And now that I've given you a picture of our second customer, I'll pass it on to Chris to tell you about our third market.
Thank you, Heather. So you've heard about clinical trials in phase 3. You've heard about employers. Well, what about you, the individual patient? I'm going to talk a little bit about what MyHealth can do to help generate revenue and create a more sustainable business plan by focusing on developing a customized patient portal. Currently, there are numerous patient portals out there. However, we did some surveys and we found out that most of you don't know what a patient portal is and you have no idea what it can do for you. They have already decided to launch a partnership with Microsoft Health Vault. Microsoft Health Vault is a free program that is available to you right now. However, we've identified several problems that most of them do not address. In addressing these problems, we found that MyHealth can partner with Microsoft Health Vault and create some revenue to make the business plan more sustainable. These problems specifically are poor representation of medical data. How many of you have gotten copies of your medical forms and have no idea what they say? Secondly, disparate medical forms. I recently took my son to one of those quick health clinics. However, I spent more time filling out 8 forms and signing privacy forms than I could have spent just seeing the doctor. I think I was in there for about 5 minutes with my son. Finally, lack of electronic health record integration. In the digital age, here in 2012, we have the ability to create some big changes in the health industry. Specifically, Sarah mentioned the executive order. However, what she also didn't mention was that the president had a vision for changing the health industry from provider-centric to to patient-centric. And we believe by creating a customizable patient portal that we are able to address this problem. Each of these opportunities costs you, we estimate, between $10 and $50, depending on what your hourly rate is and how important your business is. Secondly, let's look at the market. We determined that those of you that have chronic illnesses or young families would be high volume users of healthcare. So we propose to start with that group to target, with the hope that all of you will participate in electronic healthcare and save money. Also, the median income in Oklahoma is $43,000. That provides a very large market for us to tap. Those of you that took our survey indicated that you would be willing to spend money on a customized patient portal. The total opportunity for My Health would be $19 million if the 3.8 million population of Oklahoma would participate in this process. Now let's look at specifically the solutions that we propose. To address the poor presentation of medical data, we can utilize Microsoft Health Vault and develop some customized applications. For example, those of you with small children, you know that you need an immunization record for daycare, for school, for extracurricular activities, etc. Me being a military family, I have 5 of them. I have to make copies every single time to take them. This process would allow for a customized app for you to have one location for your immunization record to send to those locations. Additionally, you can utilize Microsoft Health Vault to fill out all of those pesky forms and then release those forms to each of the providers. You would have control over who gets that information. That would also include your health history as well as all the history of your medical history for all of your health, for all of your family members. And finally, the electronic health record integration would provide you with access to all of your medical records, which you currently do not have. Each time you want a copy of a medical record, you have to go get a physical paper copy and pay for that copy at your provider. This would allow you the opportunity to look at your health information whenever you need to. Now let's take a look at some of the financials. We found that each one of these markets provides significant revenue. In the short term, the pharmaceutical phase 3 clinical trials provided the largest opportunity. In red, you'll see the total costs, which are inclusive of all 3 markets. By leveraging existing technologies, My Health can utilize custom applications as well as Microsoft Health Vault, which they've already decided to use. Some of the assumptions that we used, for example, was only tapping into one phase 3 clinical trial. So we're looking at very conservative numbers. Additionally, the total return on investment was over 200%, which is very unbelievable. We thought so as well. However, the total revenue, this is net revenue, is over $5 million. So absorbing those costs, we can still make significant amounts of money to be able to perform some of these solutions that we've brought forward. Next steps for My Health. We do propose that we go into all 3 markets simultaneously. However, we would propose that we focus on subject recruitment since that has the biggest bang for the buck. Also, utilize the on-site clinics to start helping employers in Oklahoma gain some of this valuable information and save money for employers. And finally, you as a patient can benefit from electronic health records and electronic information to save money as well. Going forward in 2015 through 2018, we would then launch the subject adherence. That requires that the patient portal be up and running. Currently, they're planning on having that launched in 2014. So this would give them time to do software and technology interfaces and development and have the two-way digital communication with their providers. And then we'll target all employers in Oklahoma, not just those that are self-insured or those with on-site clinics, so that all employers could benefit from digital health information. And finally, those custom applications to get your immunization records where they need to go. Overall, My Health has an opportunity to become a digital gateway for health information exchange and be a player not just in the state of Oklahoma, but nationwide by setting some new precedents with some of these solutions. You've heard about phase 3 clinical trials, you've heard about employers, and you've heard about how we can help patients and generate sustainable revenue for My Health to the tune of over $8 million. At this point, we'd like to entertain any questions. The scope of our project was to focus on these 3 possible market areas. My Health is already focused on providers, including hospitals. They're actually on the board of directors with the Health Information Organization. And so that is one of the strengths of My Health, is that they're all serving together in the same organization. So they have already come on board, those major hospitals, and I know Sarah talked about that a little bit. So we didn't focus on those items that have already been targeted by the My Health organization. We focused on 3 brand new areas.
Oh, I see. What about physicians?
Physicians are included.
With your estimate of $8.1 million, how far out is your catchment? Is that the Tulsa region, or is that the state, or is that national?
That's the state of Oklahoma,
State of Oklahoma.
and it's a 5-year projection.
And we assumed penetration rates, so for year 1, it's 5%, year 2, 7%, going on up to 20%, and that's the culmination, the summation, I should say, of those projections. Yep.
Yes, sir.
So Pentaho's business plan is that it's an open source software package at a basic level, and then if you really want the nice one, you've got to pay for it, right? There's a subscription to it. Is that what Microsoft Health Vault is doing as well? There's a licensing or a subscription. It's open source again. It's free for now. Are there opportunities with pharma and employers and patients for you to have an app or a software program that runs on top of those? And is that allowed with some of those pieces? Because I've always believed that when Microsoft gets into healthcare, I want to reinvest in Microsoft because somebody's going to be the big dog, but there's still going to need to be these more prescriptive, more specific applications to the baseline application.
Yes. Oh, go ahead.
One example that we're proposing with our customizable applications, and to answer that question, absolutely. And Microsoft Health Vault has a whole bunch of applications already out there. So you absolutely could generate a new application, work with Microsoft Health Vault, and get that loaded. And some of the other patient portals do the same thing. What we're proposing, however, is that we put a front for all Oklahomans to be able to log into one location and see the exact same interface to make it simple and easy to use. And then that would launch them into all the other applications and or providers and or clinics that they need to interface. Right now, when you get into Microsoft Health Vault, it takes a lot of effort. For those of you that have tried it, I've tried it. There are some awesome functionalities to it. My entire family's prescription history all downloads for their partners, and they partner with CVS and Walgreens. But they don't partner with Walmart, which is an opportunity, huge opportunity, Walmart and Sam's. So what we're proposing is to change the face of healthcare by allowing for this simple interface that we would allow with Microsoft and My Health, so that the individual patient sees a very simple interface that helps them interact with everything. Right now, you have to log into every single one of those separately. So that would be revolutionary to the industry. Yes, sir.
So this is your second presentation, right? You did Norman before?
Oh, no, sir, I did not. This is our
This is your
first
first
opportunity.
tonight? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You did absolutely great.
Thank you.
Well done. I'm very proud of you.
On your phase 3 clinical trials, did you focus just on what are typically like the high enrollment trials for like blood pressure medicines and so on? One thing that you may want to focus on are the really designer drugs that focus on very rare conditions, because it's very difficult, extremely difficult to enroll individuals in those trials, and having because there's multiple criteria and things have to hit, so the corresponding cost increases dramatically.
Yeah.
And it's a fantastic proposal.
One of the fantastic things about utilizing My Health, and one of the advantages is utilizing the data being de-identified, is that My Health will be able to address a larger population, or at least extrapolate what population area would be more saturated in order for doctors, for example, or pharmaceuticals to be able to identify sooner who would be eligible in order to go into clinical trial. And that's why we put those large numbers of what could be saved. And more importantly, that means that these drugs can get to market faster with actual patients that have been tested, and then those of you that need that drug can get it sooner.
So each of these opportunities, markets, sound exciting, and you built the business case behind it. You've given us a sense for sort of the execution path forward, but it also sounds like a lot to do. Do you have to do them all now? Is there a natural sequence that you start with? I don't know, you say employers followed by patients by pharma, or is it all now all the time? And how do you make sure there's the right resources for that?
Truly, the biggest bang for the buck, the fastest, is the recruitment, because the implementation is really in place. They have the technology in place to address that, and it would be the least cost for the most value for my health. And so that's our initial recommendation, is to maybe focus more on that in addition to what they're already doing.
And if it's as profitable as it appears to be, it can also maybe fuel and almost underwrite the second and third markets.
That's our
Exactly.
perception.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes great. Okay, good.
So I'm going to switch over to professor and teacher. So each one of you, what are the one or two things that you learned the most from CCEW? How are you different? I'm very psychiatrist, that question.
I've definitely been forced to become an extrovert. So that's probably the biggest thing, and just the networking has been amazing. I had no idea the entrepreneurship that was available or out there and just in the Tulsa area, so we've gotten to speak to a lot of people.
Well, I'm going to piggyback off of what Heather said. I had to come out of my shell. I knew nothing about healthcare. I had to learn a lot really fast. And also not living in Oklahoma, or not living in Tulsa, I wanted to see what job opportunities and what Tulsa could offer me after I got out of school. So I kind of got to network a little bit and view my options, if you will. So
I feel like this whole program was designed just for me. And I say that because I have a business background, I have an engineering background, I didn't have a whole lot in medicine, so this helped to broaden my horizon into the medical industry. And our campus has a very big medical focus. So finally, I had an opportunity to see what's going on in the medical industry. Plus, it was technology-based, which brings back into the engineering. And secondly, I had met Sarah at a coffee with Clancy meeting, and one of the things that we brought up in that meeting was we said we need to get an opportunity to do some team-based projects incorporating cross-disciplines. Well, lo and behold, it happened. So my dream, my wish came true, so this was a perfect
I just
opportunity.
exactly what you want.
So be careful what you ask for.
I will say that it's so difficult to meet some people outside of your tiny program from a student perspective. I would have never found myself next to an engineering and organizational dynamics student had I not been in this program, and it's been really a fun ride.
Thank you guys so much. They did a great job. Thank you.
Very nice.